Greetings, everyone. It's Crime Talk with Crin, and I am back with episode 14. Thank you so much to all my new subscribers. Welcome. And you guys have been really showing up and showing out in the comment section, and I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Things have been a little busy for me over the last few days. I've been trying to respond to everyone in the comments because I do appreciate you all taking your time out to listen to my videos and also, give me feedback and ask your questions and make your comments. So I absolutely appreciate that. I am trying to grow my channel, and it has grown exponentially over the last couple of weeks. I am so excited. Thank you. So if you are new to my channel, please just take a moment to subscribe, leave me a comment, like the video, click the notification bell. I did forget to mention that one. Definitely click the notification bell because as of right now, I'm not on a schedule. As I, work things into my regular schedule, I do plan to, have a scheduled night so you guys can, know when to expect me. But in the meantime, just set your notification bell or click on the notification bell to be notified of when I drop a new video. I could tell that some of you have done so already, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. So today's episode, we are jumping back into my little mini series. I think after this episode, I'm probably going to do one or two more. But this episode, we're jumping back into the mini series, and we are talking about exculpatory evidence. So the series is things that we're not supposed to look at, things that we're not supposed to talk about. And today we are going to look at those things, and we're going to talk about those things. So today we are diving into exoneration, excuses, and exculpatory evidence. So, if you have not, if you're just now coming across this channel and you haven't seen the first two installments of this mini-series, what I'm talking about are things that came up in the very beginning, right? So we're 18 months into the Idaho student murder case, better known to those in the true crime community as the IDAHO4 case or the Brian Koberger case. So I know a lot of people don't like to reference Brian Koberger or call it like the Brian Koberger case because he's the accused, right? And so we should, be focusing and highlighting on the victims, those who lost their lives. And I absolutely understand that. So I personally refer to it as the IDAHO4 case. Anyhow, we're 18 months into this thing. And so there are some of us who have been watching this case from day one. And there's, some folks who are just now hearing about it or just now starting to research and find out, what is everybody talking about? But there's things that happened in the very beginning that, got lost in all the new information. And there's people who think that there is no new information. And there's people that think that there's no new information because the trial hasn't started. And they heard that there's a gag order. And so basically it's like, well, there's nothing to talk about because no one can talk. That is not true. We have hearings popping up every other week, it seems. And there's a lot of information that is coming out. There's a lot of information that is being discussed and being alluded to, and they're definitely not trying to let this case fall out of the spotlight. And I think that is very, very important. I know that there's a lot of people who think that, we shouldn't be talking about this anymore. We should just wait till trial and wait till there's a verdict and then base our opinions off of that, which I I'm not going to get into them right now. However, I understand that when things fall out of the spotlight, when things do not get as much attention, weird things start to happen. And so I think that as long as we keep the conversation going regarding the IDAHO4, as long as we keep the conversation going, it's not going to go away. They know that we're watching. And it's scary to me to see the things that they're allowing and the things that they're even trying to get away with, knowing how many eyes are on them. The scary part is, what are they doing that we can't see? What would they be doing if we were not watching? That's the scary part for me. I don't want to carry on too long. Y'all know how I get. But I want to get into it. And so like I said, what I want to talk about today is exculpatory evidence. That's something that seems to get overlooked often in this case. And I don't know how it could be overlooked, because they mention it all the time. It's like every time we turn around, somebody else is mentioning exculpatory evidence. So what I wanted to do is add it to my series, and I just wanted to talk about it. I love the conversations that are going on in my comment section, and so I definitely wanted to bring this up because some of the people who have subscribed to my channel and the way that you guys think is just amazing. And so I love, bouncing ideas back and forth with you guys. I can't wait to read the comments after this video. So we are going to talk about exculpatory evidence. And like I said, I don't want to hold you too long. I got a couple definitions I want to throw out, and let's get into it. So we're going to start at the very beginning, okay? We're going to start at the very beginning. December 30th, Bryan Kohberger is arrested in Pennsylvania, okay? And he gets arrested, and he has to be extradited from Pennsylvania back to Idaho. And Bryan Kohberger waives extradition and says that he is eager to get back to Idaho so he can be exonerated. That is the first thing that we hear from Bryan Kohberger, is that he is arrested in Pennsylvania. He made it across the country and says, hey, don't worry about the whole extradition process. I don't have to sit here. Send me back. I'll go back willingly because I'm eager to be exonerated. So there are a lot of people who heard that, and the chatter started. The chatter started, and they were saying, well, in order to be exonerated, you have to first be found guilty. I'm like, no, you don't. But see, now I'm not thinking about legally. I'm thinking about the definition of exoneration. I'm a writer. And so I'm like, words mean things. And the word exonerate does not mean that you have to be found guilty first. That's what I was thinking. So, in preparation for this episode, I decided to take a gander on the internet and see what the internet says about the actual definition of exoneration. So the first thing that I see is something from Michigan Law School, and it states that exoneration is a person who's convicted of a crime, and then later on the conviction's overturned, and they are basically cleared of everything. It says that they are declared factually innocent. They are pardoned by a governor or other agency with authority. So, Michigan law school says exoneration is when a person is found guilty of a crime, and then later, after a post-trial, recap of the situation. So if it's an appeal or, post-conviction re-examination of evidence in the case. That's what it says. Exoneration. A person has been exonerated if he or she was convicted of a crime and following a post-conviction re-examination of evidence in the case was relieved of all consequences of the criminal conviction. That's what Michigan Law School says exoneration is. Okay? So that is exoneration. Exonerate just means to absolve someone from blame for a fault or wrongdoing, especially after due consideration of the case. So when people were saying that in order to be exonerated, he has to first be convicted, I'm like, no. But like I said, I was thinking of the definition of the word. So the definition of the word exonerate, because that's what he said. I can't wait to get back to be exonerated. Exonerated means his name is cleared, right? So acquitted means he's found not guilty. That doesn't mean anything, really. Casey Anthony was acquitted. O.J. Simpson was acquitted. We see these, things like that all the time. And in the public, we still believe that they did what they were accused of doing. Nothing in the O.J. Simpson case, nothing in the Casey Anthony case exonerated them. There was nothing in that case to prove that they were guilty, but there was also nothing in the case to clear their name. So Bryan Kohberger is not saying, oh, I can't wait to get back and be acquitted. He's saying that something is going to come out. He can't wait to get back. Let's get this show on the road. Let's do this thing. I'm going to go back and watch how stupid y'all look. That's basically what he was saying. So Bryan Kohberger said from day one, when I get back, y'all are going to have egg on your face. Bryan Kohberger, now, very interesting. Very interesting because, see, now, and I said I didn't want to get on too long, but for me, I said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think that Bryan Kohberger was the muscle in this ordeal. I do believe that he was involved to some degree. I don't think that his name was pulled out of a hat. I don't know where he comes into the equation. I don't. But if Bryan Kohberger says, I can't wait to get back to be exonerated, that means he is aware that there is something that's going to come out to prove he did not do it. And I don't think when Bryan Kohberger was arrested, he was like, oh yeah, because they're going to get the cast report and blow this thing out the water. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that when he was arrested, he was like, oh yeah, because that IGG, yep, they ain't even going to be able to use that. He didn't know anything. There was no PCA yet. We could not get the PCA until he was back in Idaho. So nobody knew what law enforcement knew until after he was back in Idaho. So in order for him to say, I can't wait to get back to be exonerated, he had to know something. And I believe that whatever it is has yet to come out. I'll continue. So the next thing that we hear from Bryan Kohberger is that Bethany Funk has exculpatory evidence. I keep asking. So I did a video about the remaining roommates, and, I've been chatting it up with the folks in the comment section, and my question is, how does Bryan Kohberger know what Bethany Funk knows? If there's no connection, how does he know what she knows? It can't be because this one told that one and this Snapchat group said this and this and this. That would be hearsay. That's not evidence. That's hearsay. So how does Bryan Kohberger know what Bethany Funk knows? And then there's people who believe that whatever her statement was to the police has led to Bethany has exculpatory evidence. Well, if Bethany told the police the exculpatory evidence and y'all believe that the prosecution turned that over to the defense, then that means they already have it. They don't have to subpoena her as a witness for the defense. They already have it. Because what could there be in the discovery that suggests exculpatory evidence? Why not just use that? If it's that suggestive, then you have it, right? Or no? So I was always stuck on that. Well, how would he know that Bethany Funk, of all people, has exculpatory evidence? And you can't say, because she wasn't in the PCA. Maybe she wasn't there. Maybe she was sleeping. Again, how does Bryan Kohberger know what Bethany knows if he was not there? Which is where my DoorDash theory comes into play. If you have not checked out episode 3, head over to episode 3 and check out my DoorDash theory. Anyhow, so I'm going to move this thing on. That was the first time we heard exculpatory evidence. Then we had the search warrant and the statement, the supplemental disclosure, specifically from Dawn Daniels out of Washington. And Dawn Daniels out of Washington was using words in her supplemental disclosure like exculpatory and inadmissible. And so now we're like, well, wait a minute, Dawn. Wait a minute, Dawn. Why would the knife sheath, the DNA, or the IgG be exculpatory or inadmissible? And why do you have to mention your duty as an officer and the oath? Why is it that deep that you have to explain why you're distancing yourself from this particular thing? Why would the knife sheath and DNA and IgG, why would that be exculpatory or inadmissible? To the point that she's like, if you think it's exculpatory, just pretend you didn't read it. Never mind. Can you just look at the rest of it and not that part? That's what Dawn Daniels said. And if you remember, either this last hearing or the hearing before, when they were talking about the white cars in the area and whether or not the white cars over on this footage compared to this footage was the same car or not. And Ann Taylor mentioned, that sounds a little exculpatory to me. Y'all heard it. So what is exculpatory evidence? Exculpatory evidence is evidence tending to excuse, justify, or absolve the alleged fault or guilt of the defendant. Evidence tending to excuse, justify, or absolve the alleged fault or guilt of the defendant. Absolve. So exculpatory evidence would exonerate somebody, right? So is it a coincidence that the day Bryan Kohberger is arrested, he says, I'm eager to get back to be exonerated. And then for the rest of the case, everybody is talking about evidence that would exonerate him, right? Weird. So the last thing that I want to discuss about exculpatory evidence is the Brady disclosure. On March 27th of 2023, a notice of Brady disclosure and a request for protective order was filed by the state. And there were some channels that discussed it. In that filing, they mentioned a internal affairs investigation. And so they stated that the protective order was to make sure that the defense did not disseminate any of the information that they receive or learn from the disclosure. It says in there, which I thought was interesting, it says, respectfully praise for the issuance of a protective order pursuant to Idaho criminal rule, prohibiting defense counsel from disseminating the information contained in the internal affairs investigation. If this is pursuant to Idaho criminal rule, and you can't discuss certain things, right, publicly, respectfully praying for a protective order seems slightly dramatic. You don't have to pray for it. If this is part of the legal process, come on. Respectfully praise? Like that? Seriously. So, a lot of the channels were talking about, like, what's Brady-Giglio? What's Brady-Giglio? This is a new phrase. What's Brady-Giglio? And so, from what I learned from other channels when this was going on last year, was that, you know, if the cop is not always above board, these things have to be disclosed, right? And so I was like, okay, so somebody isn't always up to snuff. Okay. And so maybe they're suggesting that there's like some funny business going on with some of the cops in previous cases, and so they have to disclose it now. So, you know, they are upholding the integrity of the case, right? Okay, fine. I get it. That was March 27th of 2023. And, you know, the protective order was granted. The information was turned over to the defense. On May 4th of 2023, Ann Taylor was still requesting training records for particular officers. And so I know a lot of people thought that was unnecessary. She's wasting taxpayers' money, you know, requesting all this unnecessary stuff, and it's all the filings and all the hearings. And so I am inclined to believe that the training records that she's requesting have nothing to do with the officer in the Brady disclosure. Because if there's an internal affair investigation for a particular officer or particular officers, and they have to submit that information from the internal affairs investigation and request a protective order so that the defense cannot disseminate any of the information that they get from this internal affairs investigation, whatever information about those officers or officer involved in the Brady disclosure internal affairs investigation, you would have everything that you need to know about those officers right there. So the training records that she's asking for have nothing to do with the Brady disclosure. So I'm like, okay, let me look and see what is Brady-Giglio. And what did I find? The Brady-Giglio policy refers to 2 United States Supreme Court decisions that help protect the right to a fair trial guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. Under the Brady-Giglio policy, federal prosecutors must disclose evidence that might exonerate you. Wait a minute. If this is what Brady-Giglio is, why is everybody focusing on possible corruption and internal affairs investigations? A phrase that is thrown around a lot in this case is red herring. So we're going to mention internal affairs even though that has nothing to do with it. In the filing, it says, respectfully gives a notice to court and counsel that the state has become aware of a potential Brady-Giglio material related to one of the officers involved in the above referenced case. The state intends to disclose this information to the defendant's counsel, but this information is confidential and exempt from public discourse. That's what the filing from March 27th says. That at some point between the arrest and then, that the prosecution became aware of something, and similar to Dawn Daniels, as officers of the court or law, they have to disclose it. So Dawn Daniels had a supplemental disclosure where she said, hey, to maintain my integrity, here we go. And so now we have March 27th, the prosecutor is also filing a disclosure saying, hey, I've been made aware of something and I need to make you guys aware of something, but you can't talk about it. So United States versus Giglio, when the reliability of a given witness may be determinative of guilt or innocence, non-disclosure of evidence affecting credibility falls within the rule regardless of whether withheld in good faith. So Brady versus Maryland is a 1963 capital murder case. The government had a duty to disclose material exculpatory evidence. Failure to do so violated due process, where the evidence is material to either guilty, innocence of the accused, or punishment. There is no regard for good or bad faith of the prosecutor. Under the Constitution, due process requires the prosecution to turn over evidence favorable to the accused and material to his guilt or punishment. This requirement includes evidence that may be used to impeach the prosecution's witnesses, including police officers. So, we have Brady case, we have Giglio case, which together has since been lumped together as a Brady-Giglio notice or Brady-Giglio material or what have you. So now we have, again, the word exculpatory flung all through there. And this is from the prosecution because they have a duty to disclose this information because of due process, to uphold the integrity of the case. So now, I'm confused. And, I get on here and I talk about, my thoughts and my theories and I speculate. I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to know anything. It's just my thoughts, my opinions. But I'm trying to figure out if Brady-Giglio means that you have to disclose information that could be favorable to the defense. You have to disclose exculpatory evidence, and exculpatory evidence can exonerate the defendant. And this was March 27th of 2023. That was over a year ago. What are we doing right now? What are we doing right now? I'm confused. Why is there so much talk about exculpatory evidence and yet Bryan Kohberger is still sitting in jail? Why is there so much talk about exculpatory evidence and Ann Taylor was quite literally sounding like she was about to cry in court a couple of months ago, saying that she was uncomfortable and the idea of having trial start next summer was scary to her. There's all this talk about exculpatory evidence, and yet we still don't have a trial date. So now, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about Ann. I'm going to talk about Ann Taylor because she is straddling the fence in a way that is astonishing to me. A couple hearings ago, she was in there chubbing up Bill Thompson. I'm not saying he's intentionally withholding. And then a couple hearings later, she was calling him out for withholding evidence. And so it's like, well, how come all this time you didn't think that he was intentionally withholding it, but now you are? Are you putting on for the people that are watching? Because this seems a little strange to me. There's a whole lot of talk about evidence that can prove his innocence. I don't get it. What am I missing here? And I know there's people who think that he's guilty. And like I said in my last video, I do not shy away from a difference of opinion. If you have a theory, drop it in the comments. If you know why there's so much talk about exculpatory evidence from both sides, and this case has not been dismissed, drop it in the comments. I'm like dead serious. I want to know. I want to know. Because this doesn't make sense. And the last thing that I want to say is I am very curious to know what is going to happen. What would happen if Bryan Kohberger is exonerated? Not just acquitted. If Bryan Kohberger is actually exonerated, what happens Next, you knock down the house. You let everyone la for however much time it's going to take for a trial to happen. What happens now? If Brian Kohlberger is actually exonerated due to exculpatory evidence, proof that he did not do this, what happens now? Do you start from the drawing board? Do you pay someone else thousands upon thousands of dollars to represent somebody else? What happens now? That's what I want to know. How do you start over? Will these students ever get justice? There is, like I said, there's a lot to consider. There is a lot to talk about. There's a lot to look into. There's things that are happening that are new in the case that take our attention away from the things that happened originally in the case. And so I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to keep looking. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for all the love that you are showing me in the comments. Again, if you are new, subscribe. Thank you. Like the video. Drop me a comment. Set your notification bells. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, that's all I got.